Hey guys, welcome back to another art video. So in my previous video, I mentioned that I wanted to try out some oil pastels I got in a Daler Rowney set, and it's been a while since I've tried oil pastels, so I wanted to try it out for this video. And I also recently got some soft pastels, so now I have all three of the different type of pastels, and I started wanting to know more about them, like how to use them, what's the best way to blend and like apply color. So I've been doing a lot of research about the different types of pastels, and I learned a lot. I mean, there's a lot of differences between like artist quality and student grade, and even like really cheap, down to the really cheap pastels that you get at like dollar stores and stuff. So pretty much the differences is that soft pastels have less binder in them and hard pastels have more binder. And I remember when I was using pastels in university, I was using mostly the hard pastels, and I was having like a hard time. I was getting kind of frustrated with using them because hard pastels means there's more like binder chemical in it, so the pigment doesn't lay on the paper that smoothly. So I had to keep like applying pressure and pushing the color into the paper, and it was starting to hurt my hand for a while. So then there's oil pastels, and oil pastels have oil as a binder instead of a regular chemical like the other pastels use, and that makes the texture of oil pastels look more like oil paint. So that's what gives it that distinctive texture. So the soft pastels I have are artist quality, but the hard and oil pastels I have are just, I don't know if they're student grade but they were really cheap. So they're the cheaper brands, and pretty much the cheaper pastels have two problems. They have a problem with opacity, like color opacity, and they have a blending problem. So it doesn't, like when you're dragging the oil pastel or the cheaper pastel on the paper, it'll be much harder for the color to lay out. Like it doesn't lay out nice and smoothly. It will leave a bunch of it will skip a lot and leave a bunch of white patches. So you need to apply more pressure in order for more of the pigment to come on the paper. Also, because of the opacity problem, it's not, when you rub the pastel on top of the paper, it's not a super bright color. So if you're using toned paper, then it won't work at all on those. Like you'll see, especially if you're using the duller colors, you'll see a lot of the dull color, like either if you're doing it on brown paper, you'll see a lot of the brown showing through the pastels, and it won't look very good. Yeah, and then blending. That was another problem I was having when I was doing this image. When I was trying to blend, I had to use a lot of pressure, and some of the pastel sticks were like, because they have a paper on them, so when the pastel that's beyond the paper was used up, I started tearing out the paper around it and trying to use it that way. But because I had to apply a lot of pressure for the oil pastels to blend, it kept breaking. And when I was researching like artist quality pastels versus cheaper pastels, someone was reviewing the Sennelier oil pastels, and the oil pastels from Sennelier were much more buttery, and they blended, like they can blend with your finger or like a blending stump. When I was trying to blend these oil pastels, they weren't doing much. They were just like staying in place, and when I tried to take out my blending stump, it had a little bit of graphite on it because I did use it with my graphite pencils. And when I was trying to blend it with my blending stump, it actually transferred all the well, I wasn't blending this painting, I was doing it on a side swatch, and it like dulled out the whole area I was trying to blend, but it still didn't blend. So the only way to blend these cheaper pastels is to mash the lighter color into the darker color and try to like blend it out that way. And that's pretty much what I was doing. There's still some white spots left on the paper because the type of paper I was using is my light gray student grade watercolor paper. I was actually testing out a lot of papers with this oil pastel to see which one works the best on it. It worked pretty good on the hot press, but it didn't, like, it was harder for the oil pastel to cover a large area on there, so I decided not to go with that. But the best paper was actually this gray student grade paper, so that's why I went with that one. And so in terms of subject matter, my cousin asked me to draw her a tree because there's just one blank space left on her wall where she has the rest of her picture frames, and she asked me to do something for her to put on that specific area. And I said sure. So, but I've been putting it off. So recently I had a dream where I was having like a gallery show, and each and every one of my paintings was this like really colorful, impressionistic, like Van Gogh-y kind of style, and the paint was moving on the canvas, even so it looked like an animation even though it was just a traditional painting. And it was apparently in my dream a big hit. But yeah, I didn't really care. Like in my dream I didn't care how popular they were. I just, like, when I looked at them they made me happy, and like they looked really pleasant to view and stuff like that. So that's the kind of look I was going for when I was doing this painting. I do remember seeing the paintings in my dream almost like very vividly, so I tried to copy as much as I could remember from what I was painting in my dreams, and that's how this turned out to be really bright and colorful. I tried to do a portrait with these oil pastels, and it's almost impossible. I can do a portrait, but it's gonna look very messy and very out of place. I felt like when I was doing a landscape with it, and a very like abstract impressionistic landscape, it worked the best because I needed the color to show through more than the blending or like anything else, and that's pretty much what they were good at. Pastel still isn't my favorite medium because there's a lot of preparation and also cleanup. And also, when you're finished with your artwork, you need to worry about setting it or like applying fixatives so that it doesn't smudge around. And that I do have a problem with that. The last time I was doing a pastel portrait, I got some fixative and I sprayed it on. I left it to dry overnight, and by the morning it was still smudging, even though I spent like a good 10 to 15 minutes spraying it. So I'm not sure if I applied it wrong, or maybe I got like a cheaper fixative, so it didn't work out that well. But I still need to figure out how to properly seal my pastel paintings if I ever want to do any more in the future. So I did get this plastic sticky paper, and I'm planning to just lay it on top of the surface to prevent any of the pastel moving around. Unlike markers, which have no setup or cleanup, or like you don't need to put any fixative because it's just ink on the paper, it's much more convenient for me than pastels. So, and it's surprising because none of my art teachers ever mentioned that markers for artists existed. So I pretty much had to figure that out on my own when I was looking online at different people's artworks. I figured out that markers, like alcohol markers, exists, and that's how I like started investing in them because they started being my favorite medium. Overall, I really liked the final product. I think it looked very accurate in terms of how I saw it in my dream. It was just like, in my dream it was on huge canvases and it was like moving around and everything, so obviously I was hallucinating a little bit in my dream, but But in terms of color, I think it's pretty accurate to what I was seeing, and I hope you guys liked the video. A big thank you to all my new subscribers. Every time I see like a new person subscribing to my channel, it helps me out. It makes me want to do more with my art and more with my channel. So thank you very much for all your encouragement, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Oh, branching out of your traditional style, eh? Is that the river of unicorn pea? No. Are you imitating something? No! I saw me painting this in a dream. So now I'm making it a reality. Looks like the apocalypse. How many subscribers do you have now? 19. I just want to thank you all for 18 subscribers. 19. I never thought I would have